Hey everyone, so I had a little visitor, during making this video, so this might get distracting, but he's going to lay down right here. What are you going to do, right? So the biggest question I've gotten so far is how do I make my object jump / fly / float? And so I've had a two-tier question, so let me answer them both. A lot of you are saying, am I supposed to go do third-party research and watch YouTube videos and do Unity research in order to do this? And the answer is yes and no. Yes, that is great. If you find other ways to incorporate movement into your Unity project or ways to make your Unity project more like the game that you wanted to do, then please do that. However, you can do everything that's required for the projects while using only the code that we are teaching you in the OHS. So I want you to know that as well. I'm never going to ask you to do something that I'm never going to ask you to do anything that we haven't taught you. Okay, so I'm going to show you really quick how to incorporate some quick movement using the code that we've already learned. Okay, so the code that's already in our handler script. So the first thing we need to do is go to project or edit project settings, and we need to change our input to a button that we want for our jump. Now default, I think it's already on spacebar, but that's kind of confusing because we use space for shoot, for fire, right? So for fire 1, I have changed mine to mouse 0, which is the left click. And then I'm going to change my jump to space because I want my cube to jump when I hit the space bar. So make sure that you're very clear about which buttons you want to use for each of these actions, okay? Now, we're going to jump into our handler script, and I'm going to show you how to edit some really quick code that will allow you to make this guy jump. Okay, so right here inside of our update, remember we created this code in order to move on the x-axis, man, that's hard to say, and y-axis, right? So so obviously we can use this same code to control our cube up the z-axis. Okay, so that's obviously possible. So I'm going to try to do some copying and pasting and see if this works. So I'm going to grab this speed times input get axis horizontal times time dot delta time. So I'm going to grab this little piece of code. I'm going to copy it. And I'm going to put it right here where 0f is. Now, if you know how translate works, transform.translate, remember there's an x and a z and a y, right? So we're going to just put this in for our z. So we control V. Now, the only problem is this says horizontal. Well, horizontal, it correlates to the button input of horizontal, which is that left and right button, right? And then this one's vertical. Well, let's just change this to our new button, which was space. So now it's saying input.getAxis. If you look at what is the input of this transform, which is the z, the up and down, what is the point in Unity whenever I hit the space key? What's going on? And then I want you to multiply that by time, delta time, and give it that speed and that kind of thing. So all we're doing is setting up the same piece of code, but for our third axis, right? Now, if we run it just like this, nothing's going to happen, okay? Because remember we created this vector 3 right here that bounded our object to a certain size. It bounded us to the maximum and the minimum of our plane on the x and the y axis, right? Well, that's a problem. We need to, and right now it's bound to 0.5. That's not going to work. If we jump and it's bound to only 0.5, guess what? Our cube's not going anywhere. So we need to bound this thing down, but expand how far this is bound, okay? So let's do that. So up here, we created a few variables for our xmin, xmax, zmin, zmax, right? Well, we need to add to this 2 more, and we'll be able to manipulate these in our code, right? Because we're making them public. So we're going to create 2 more. I'm coding with a child on my lap, which is pretty cool, right? Ymin and ymax. Okay, so we need to create those 2 public variables. So this will be bounding of the top and bottom. In your games, you usually want to bound based on the top and bottom as well. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to replace this 0.5f with this piece of code right here because we want to create a new bounds. Okay, Control V. There we go. Now the only thing now, remember, don't forget to change this to position Y. Okay, so sorry, I've been saying Z this whole time. I meant Y. Y is your up and down, obviously. Z is back and forth. X is left and right. So Ymin, Ymax, Y. So we're talking about the Y. Bless you. So we're talking about the Y now. All right. So Control S to save. All right. Let's see. Control S to save. So now, just by adding some code that we already know, right, we can create a jump. I promise you it'll work. So let's save it. I'm going to exit this, and I got to do one more thing. So remember, if I do this now, it's going to look a little funky. Click on our cube, and we have two new variables that we can manipulate over here in our inspector. We have all of our bounds. We have the y minimum, the y maximum. So I'm going to do the y min to, like, I don't know, what's the y min? Let's just leave it at 0. Let's do the y max at 10. Okay, so that's 10 units high. It should be plenty enough to give us a pretty good jump. And let's go to play and see what happens. All right, so we can still move, right? Now my keys aren't working. Hold on, let's make sure. Let's reset it. And let's hit play. And now my keys aren't working. That's not good. And my jump's not working. So let's go in and take a look at our, I'm sure I've just messed something up in my handler script. So let me double click and go check that out. There it goes. Doing okay? All right.
Keys are not working and the phone's not working.
Right, my jumping's not working, and the reason my jumping's not working is probably because this space right here needs a capital S. So let's do this. Remember, spelling, all that's probably pretty important. So let's say, oh, I know why. This is not space. This is supposed to be jump. Ah, okay. So this is supposed to be jump. Remember, you're using not the key code. You're using the name in the input editor. So it should be jump. Thank you, Coda. Thanks, bud. Appreciate it. All right, so we're gonna put jump instead. Now we're gonna save it. Now we're gonna hit click X. Now it should run. So let's hit play. All right, so we can move left and right, and if we hit the space key, we're jumping. Nice, look at that. And watch, it'll still interact just like a rigid body. Jump over the ball, and it'll flip and all that. Now it's gonna be all messed up, see, because my cube is not on the bottom. So when I jump, it's gonna go that way instead. All right, so that's an easy way that you can make a jump. Remember, there's other variables that you can think about adding public to where you can add, you can edit it in here, like force. So things like down force, jumping force, gravity, all these things you can edit. All these things you can edit to make it more realistic. Okay, you can change your bounds. You can make it to where it can jump really, really high, or barely jump, or jump depending on how close it is to the ball. So there's all these different things that you can add to this. But remember, there's always going to be a way. This is the big point of the lesson. Always going to be a way in your projects that you can finish your project using the code that we've taught you in the OHS. Okay, so remember, and once you do that and you keep looking at the code, then you'll start to realize, oh, well, I use this code to manipulate the X and the Y axis. So why can't I use it to manipulate, sorry, the X and the Z? Why can't I use it to manipulate the Y? And sure enough, you can, just by changing up a couple of quick options. So if you still need help with this, please reach out to me. It'll be awesome. If not, good luck on your project. Turn it in as soon as possible. I'll get it graded. Thank you so much for watching the video, and I'll see you very, very soon. Say bye. Say bye.